December 1943. The cargo ship cuts through the Pacific darkness, carrying 47 Japanese prisoners toward an unknown fate. Among them, Hiroshi Tanaka grips the metal railing, prepared for what propaganda had promised: torture chambers, starvation, barbaric treatment. He had accepted death the moment American forces captured him in the Solomon Islands. But death doesn't greet him at the San Francisco docks. Instead, military police officers distribute wool blankets. A medical officer checks temperatures, treats wounds, documents names with bureaucratic precision. No beatings, no screaming, just efficiency that contradicts everything Hiroshi had been taught about the enemy. The first crack appears in his understanding of war. The train journey eastward deepens his confusion. Through the window, America unfolds like a contradiction to Japanese wartime propaganda. Farmlands stretch endlessly, untouched by bombs. Cities glow with electric lights while Tokyo burns in darkness. Children walk freely to schools. Families drive automobiles on paved roads. Warehouses overflow with goods while Japan rations rice. This abundance should make him angry. Instead, it makes him think. At a brief stop in Nevada, something impossible happens. An American soldier approaches speaking fluent Japanese, offering cigarettes and asking about his family in Hiroshima. The soldier's eyes carry genuine concern, not cruelty. Hiroshi cannot reconcile this humanity with the demons described in Imperial broadcasts. The prisoner camp near Salinas, California, reinforces this disorientation. Barracks stand clean and organized. Meals arrive regularly, not luxurious but adequate. Guards maintain distance but show no sadistic pleasure. International Red Cross officials visit weekly, documenting conditions. Hiroshi watches other prisoners adapt differently. Some cling to emperor worship, refusing to acknowledge American decency as anything but manipulation. Others quietly accept this new reality, uncertain what it means for everything they believed. During his second week, Sergeant Robert Anderson calls him to the administrative building. Anderson is a quiet man, weathered by something deeper than war, perhaps the depression, perhaps personal loss. He speaks slowly, choosing words carefully. "Your file says you worked fishing boats before conscription." Hiroshi nods, suspicious of where this leads. "We have a situation in San Pedro, a commercial fishery that needs temporary management. The owner..." Anderson pauses, measuring his words. "The owner cannot currently operate it. We need someone who understands the work." "Why me?" "Because you know fish, because the facility happens to be Japanese-owned, because we believe in productive work, not idle imprisonment." The offer carries layers Hiroshi cannot yet understand. Why would Americans trust an enemy soldier with commercial property? What happened to the Japanese owner? Why does Anderson's expression suggest sadness rather than strategy? "You'll have supervision. You'll earn minimal wages held in trust. But you'll work with dignity, contribute something meaningful." That night, lying on his bunk, Hiroshi contemplates the impossible choice forming before him. The emperor demands absolute loyalty. Yet these Americans treat him better than his own officers ever did, better than the propaganda machine predicted. The other prisoners whisper about collaboration, about shame, about maintaining honor through resistance. But Hiroshi remembers the Japanese-speaking soldiers' kind eyes. He remembers adequate meals when Tokyo starves. He remembers being treated as human rather than expendable. The propaganda is cracking further. Tomorrow, he will see this mysterious fishery. Tomorrow, he will learn what happened to its Japanese owner. Tomorrow, another piece of his certainty about enemies and allies will shatter, because war, he is beginning to understand, is simpler than the truth. The camp becomes Hiroshi's world for 3 weeks before San Pedro. During this time, he learns the strange mathematics of captivity under the Geneva Convention, a document he never knew existed until Sergeant Anderson explained it during orientation. Every morning begins identically. Roll call at 6. Breakfast of oatmeal, toast, occasionally eggs. Work assignments posted on bulletin boards like factory schedules. Some prisoners repair military equipment, stripped of weapons. Others maintain campgrounds, tend vegetable gardens, learn trades through rudimentary English lessons. The structure contradicts everything warfare taught Hiroshi about survival. There are no beatings for slow work, no executions for defiance. When a prisoner becomes ill, doctors treat him. When mail arrives from Japan through Red Cross channels, guards distribute it without reading personal contents. This efficiency disturbs him more than cruelty would. In the barracks, prisoners divide into factions. The hardliners maintain emperor worship through secret rituals, whispering about honor and eventual rescue. They view cooperation as betrayal, treating Hiroshi with suspicion after he accepts the fishery assignment. Others, mostly older conscripts who remember life before militarization, adapt quietly. They learn English phrases, joke cautiously with guards, accept that survival might mean flexibility rather than rigidity. Hiroshi exists between these worlds, observing both. Sergeant Anderson becomes an unexpected constant. Unlike the shouting officers of the Imperial Army, Anderson speaks in measured tones, explaining rather than commanding. He served in the First War, saw poison gas in French trenches, returned damaged by something he never names. During their second meeting, Anderson shares unexpected honesty. This camp isn't perfect. Some guards carry prejudice. Some prisoners suffer discrimination we cannot completely prevent. But we follow rules because rules separate us from chaos. Your rules protect enemies, Hiroshi asks, testing the logic. Our rules protect humans. Enemy is temporary, human is permanent. The philosophy seems naive to someone raised on Bushido codes and total war doctrine. Yet Hiroshi cannot dismiss it entirely, because these Americans practice what they preach with uncomfortable consistency. The camp library offers another contradiction. Books in multiple languages, including Japanese. Newspapers arrive weekly, uncensored except for military intelligence. Hiroshi reads about Allied victories his commanders would have hidden. He reads about Japanese atrocities his government denied. He reads about American mistakes, failures, internal debates, transparency that seems like weakness until he recognizes it as confidence. One afternoon, a Red Cross inspector interviews him privately. Are you receiving adequate food? Yes. Medical care when needed? Yes. Have guards physically harmed you? No. The inspector notes everything meticulously. This documentation protects you. It also holds America accountable to international law. Hiroshi never imagined accountability could extend to enemy prisoners. The fishery assignment approaches. Anderson provides details during their final camp meeting. The location, San Pedro, California. The facility, Tanaka Fish Company. No relation to Hiroshi's surname, merely coincidence. The situation, owners relocated in 1942, property maintained under government supervision, now requiring operational management. Why can't the owners return? Hiroshi asks. Anderson's expression darkens slightly. That's complicated. You'll understand when you arrive. Is it dangerous? Not physically, but it might challenge what you believe about us. That night, Hiroshi packs minimal belongings, military-issued clothing, a few personal items salvaged from capture. Other prisoners watch with mixed emotions. Some offer quiet encouragement. Others turn away, unable to reconcile cooperation with honor. The hardliner group leader approaches as Hiroshi prepares to sleep. Remember who you are, remember what they did to our empire. But Hiroshi increasingly struggles to remember the simple narratives that once defined his world. Tomorrow, the fishery. Tomorrow, another truth. The truck journey to San Pedro takes 4 hours through California's coastal landscape. Hiroshi sits handcuffed in the back, watching America pass through metal grating, orange groves, oil derricks, sprawling suburbs untouched by war's destruction. Sergeant Anderson drives with a young corporal named Miller, who chain-smokes and says nothing. The silence allows Hiroshi to prepare mentally for whatever awaits, though preparation proves impossible for what he discovers. San Pedro's harbor smells of salt, diesel and fish, familiar scents that momentarily transport him to Hiroshima's docks, where his father taught him to read ocean currents. The fishing district bustles with activity, despite wartime. Boats unload catches, workers shout in multiple languages, seagulls circle overhead, indifferent to human conflicts. The truck stops before a modest building, weathered wood, faded paint, a sign reading Takahashi Family Fishery, in English and Japanese characters. Anderson unlocks Hiroshi's handcuffs. Come. The front door opens without resistance, unlocked, as if the owners just stepped away momentarily. Inside, time stopped in February 1942. Hiroshi freezes at the threshold, overwhelmed by intimacy. A family altar stands against the eastern wall, incense holders empty but positioned respectfully. Photographs show 3 generations: elderly grandparents, middle-aged parents, 2 teenage children, a young girl holding a calico cat. Their faces carry the careful dignity of immigrant families building new lives in uncertain lands. The office remains organized, ledgers stacked chronologically, receipts filed by month. Day calendar frozen on February 1942 displays a photograph of Mount Fuji, someone's homeland memory preserved across the Pacific. Personal belongings scattered throughout suggest hurried departure. A child's school notebook lies open to half-finished mathematics homework. A woman's apron hangs on a hook, still creased from last wearing. A man's reading glasses rest on a newspaper dated February 19, 1942, headline partially visible, Executive Order 9066. Hiroshi doesn't understand the English words, but recognizes dates separating before from after. The processing room behind the office reveals the family's livelihood. Stainless steel tables, ice storage, cutting tools arranged with craftsman's precision, equipment maintained carefully until the moment maintenance stopped. Anderson watches Hiroshi absorb everything, then speaks quietly. The Takahashi family operated this fishery for 23 years, built it from nothing, employed 12 people, Japanese, Mexican, Italian, Portuguese, respected in the community. Where are they? Manzanar War Relocation Center, Eastern California desert. They were given 72 hours to report, could bring only what they could carry. Hiroshi processes this information slowly. They were arrested, relocated, interned. The government decided Japanese ancestry posed security risks after Pearl Harbor. Anderson's voice carries no pride, just factual reporting. All Japanese along the West Coast, citizens and non-citizens alike. But they are American. Yes. The single word contains enormous weight. Hiroshi walks through the fishery again, seeing it differently. This isn't abandoned enemy property. This is a family's life interrupted mid-sentence, like a book closed without marking the page. He finds a framed photograph in the office, the Takahashi family standing proudly before their fishery's opening day, American flag visible in the background alongside their Japanese heritage. Your government imprisoned its own people. Anderson meets his eyes directly. Yes, we did. It's not something we're proud of. But it happened. The second crack in Hiroshi's understanding becomes a fracture. He came expecting American barbarism against enemies. Instead, he discovers American injustice against citizens and finds himself trusted with their legacy. Why show me this? Because you'll work here. You should know whose work you're continuing. The fishery reopens under strange circumstances. Hiroshi works supervised but trusted, managing daily operations while Corporal Miller observes from a respectful distance. The arrangement makes no sense by military logic, yet functions through unexpected human cooperation. Morning begins at 4, when fishing boats return with night catches. Hiroshi receives deliveries, grades fish quality, manages ice storage, skills his father taught him decades ago on different shores. His hands remember work his mind tried to forget during military service. The fishermen notice immediately that someone competent manages the Takahashi facility again. Word spreads through San Pedro's tight maritime community. Within days, old customers return cautiously, testing whether business can resume despite the family's absence. They bring questions Hiroshi cannot answer and assumptions he must navigate carefully. "So family?" asks Miguel, a Mexican boat captain who supplied the Takahashis for 15 years. "No, temporary worker." Miguel studies him, recognizing what uniform remnants and Corporal Miller's presence indicate. "You're one of them, the prisoners." "Yes." Miguel considers this, then shrugs. "Takahashi-san treated me fair. You work honest, we do business." Others prove less accepting. An Italian fisherman spits when seeing Hiroshi, muttering about sons fighting in the Pacific. A Portuguese captain refuses to sell catches to Jap hands, forcing Miguel to purchase and resell those deliveries. Hiroshi absorbs this hostility without response, understanding that war creates wounds on all sides. The most unexpected encounter happens during the second week. A young woman enters the fishery speaking rapid Japanese, startling Hiroshi mid-work. She's Nisei, second generation, dressed in American clothing but carrying her parents' language fluently. "My name is Hana Matsuda. I knew the Takahashis before." She pauses, searching for appropriate words. "Before everything changed." "They are well?" Hiroshi asks carefully. "Last letter said they survive. Manzanar is difficult, but they endure." Hana's expression hardens. "My family avoided internment because we lived in Colorado. Lucky geography." She walks through the fishery, touching familiar surfaces like visiting a ghost. "Mrs. Takahashi taught me to clean fish here, said skilled hands honor the ocean's gift." "Why come now?" "Because someone should remember them while they're gone. Because I heard a Japanese prisoner was working their business, and I needed to understand what that meant." Hana confronts him with uncomfortable directness. "Do you know what happened to us? To American citizens who look like you?" Sergeant Anderson explained some. Did he explain children behind barbed wire? Did he explain families losing everything they built? Did he explain Americans treated worse than enemy prisoners? Hiroshi has no response adequate to her anger, but Hana's fury softens into something more complex. "Yet here you are, enemy soldier trusted with their legacy while they rot in desert camps." The irony is almost funny. She stays for an hour, sharing stories about the Takahashi family, their kindness, their struggle, their hope that America would eventually recognize its mistake. Before leaving, she offers unexpected words. "We're not perfect, Hiroshi. America fails constantly, hurts people, makes terrible choices, but we argue about it. We write letters. We fight in courts. We try to become better, even when we fail. Does trying matter if people still suffer? It's all that separates us from nations that never try at all." Hana returns weekly after that, bringing news, helping occasionally, representing the complicated truth that people contain more nuance than propaganda allows. The delivery truck leaves San Pedro at dawn, carrying fish supplies northward through California's inland routes. Sergeant Anderson drives while Hiroshi sits in the passenger seat, no longer handcuffed, a trust that would have seemed impossible months ago. They travel through farmland, past orchards heavy with fruit, along roads that climb toward mountains dividing coast from desert. Anderson says little, letting the landscape speak for itself. By midday, the terrain transforms. Coastal abundance gives way to harsh desert, scrub brush, alkaline soil, heat shimmering off empty spaces. The Sierra Nevada mountains rise to the west, beautiful and indifferent. Then Hiroshi sees it. A city materializes in the desert where no city should exist. Rows of tar paper barracks stretch toward the horizon, organized in perfect military grids. Watchtowers rise at intervals, guards visible as dark silhouettes against bright sky. Barbed wire fences contain approximately 10,000 lives within geometric boundaries. Manzanar War Relocation Center. Anderson slows the truck on the highway running parallel to the camp, far enough to avoid official checkpoints, but close enough for Hiroshi to witness everything clearly. Through the wire, American life continues under impossible circumstances. Children attend makeshift schools in barrack buildings. Women hang laundry on lines strung between structures. Men tend vegetable gardens coaxed from reluctant desert soil. A baseball game happens in a cleared area. Boys in improvised uniforms playing America's sport behind America's fences. Hiroshi's mind struggles to reconcile what his eyes report. These are not foreign enemies. These are American citizens, people who spoke English, attended American schools, pledged allegiance to the flag now flying above their imprisonment. People who look like him but belong to the nation that captured him. The Takahashi family lives there, Anderson says quietly. Block 22, Barrack 9. Mrs. Takahashi works in the mess hall. Mr. Takahashi helps maintain irrigation systems. Their daughter, Aiko, attends the camp school. For how long? Since February 1942, no end date announced. Hiroshi watches a young girl approximately Aiko's age chase a ball near the fence, her laughter carrying across the desert silence. She could be the same child from the fishery photograph. Same age, same innocent energy, playing in a world that betrayed her citizenship. The contrast pierces deeper than any propaganda could reach. In the POW camp, Hiroshi received Geneva Convention protections, adequate food, medical care, male privileges, international oversight. Here, American citizens receive supervision, containment, suspended liberty without charges or trials. How you treat prisoners better than your own people, Hiroshi says. Not accusation, but observation. Anderson's jaw tightens. Yes, we do. It's one of our worst mistakes. Why show me this? Because you need to understand what America is, not the myth, not the propaganda from either side. We're people trying to build something better while constantly failing at it. We write beautiful words about freedom, then imprison citizens out of fear. We claim justice, then commit injustice. But we also argue about these failures. We document them. We let people like you see our shame. Anderson gestures toward Manzanar. Your country would never show prisoners its contradictions. We show you ours because transparency is how nations improve, even when improvement comes too slowly for the people suffering now. The truck remains parked for 20 minutes, while Hiroshi absorbs this lesson propaganda never taught, that imperfect nations acknowledging imperfection might be more honest than perfect nations denying flaws. A guard tower occupies his vision. Americans guarding Americans, defending against threats that exist only in fearful imagination. The Takahashis know I work their fishery. Hana writes to them. They know, they're grateful. Gratitude from people imprisoned by their own government toward an enemy soldier trusted with their legacy. The irony contains more truth about humanity than any military doctrine ever offered. As Anderson restarts the truck, Hiroshi takes one final look at Manzanar. Children still play baseball. Women still hang laundry. Life persists despite injustice, because people endure what nations inflict. The mountains watch silently, having witnessed countless human failures across centuries. Spring 1945 arrives with news that changes everything. Germany surrenders. Japan faces inevitable defeat. The Pacific War enters its final, desperate phase. In San Pedro, these distant events create immediate consequences for one fishery and the enemy soldier who maintains it. The government announces plans to close temporary commercial operations managed by POW labor. The Takahashi fishery faces permanent shutdown unless the family returns to claim it, but Manzanar shows no signs of releasing internees, despite military necessity fading. Hiroshi confronts a choice he never anticipated. He could accept repatriation to Japan, return to whatever remains of Hiroshima after American firebombing. Military honor demands this return. The emperor expects loyal subjects to rebuild the shattered empire. But Hiroshi thinks about the Takahashi family's empty home. He thinks about Miguel's steady business relationship built on mutual respect. He thinks about Hana's complicated hope that imperfect nations can improve. He thinks about children playing baseball behind barbed wire. Japan offers ideology. America offers contradiction. Yet somehow, contradiction feels more honest than certainty. During a quiet evening at the fishery, Sergeant Anderson finds Hiroshi organizing equipment with unnecessary precision, the work of a mind avoiding difficult thoughts. "You're worried about what comes next," Anderson observes, not questioning but stating. "The war ends soon. I should want to go home." Should want and actually want are different things. Hiroshi sets down the tools he's been mindlessly arranging. "In Japan, I have nothing. My father died before the war. My mother lives with my sister's family if American bombs spared them. I was a fisherman conscripted into fighting I never believed in. And here I am enemy, prisoner, someone who should not exist in this place." Anderson sits on a processing table, informal and thoughtful. "You're right that you shouldn't exist here by normal logic. Enemy soldier trusted with American citizens, property while those citizens suffer internment. It makes no sense. But most important things in life make no sense. What will happen to the Takahashis? Eventually they'll be released. The government can't maintain the camps forever. Public opinion shifts. Court cases challenge the legality. America argues with itself, slowly, frustratingly, but genuinely. And the fishery. Without someone maintaining it, it closes permanently. Equipment gets sold. Building falls into disrepair. 23 years of work disappears because we failed the people who built it. The implication hangs between them unspoken. Hiroshi walks to the office, where the Takahashi family photograph still hangs. 4 faces smiling at a future they couldn't predict would betray them. He's preserved their work for 3 years, work that might mean nothing if nobody continues it. "I don't owe loyalty to America," Hiroshi says carefully. "No, you don't. I owe loyalty to people who treated me as human when they had every reason not to. I owe loyalty to a family imprisoned by their own country who trusted an enemy with their dream. I owe loyalty to the idea that people matter more than nations." Anderson nods slowly. That's enough reason for anything. Outside, the Pacific Ocean continues its eternal rhythm, waves touching shores that belong to everyone and no one. Hiroshi makes his decision not through patriotism or ideology, but through the simple human mathematics of gratitude, dignity, and hope, that effort toward goodness eventually matters. The war will end, borders will remain, but people can choose which side of history they preserve through daily work. He will stay, he will maintain the fishery, he will wait for the Takahashis to come home. August 1945. The world changes in atomic fire. Hiroshima and Nagasaki vanish in moments that compress years of war into incomprehensible conclusion. Japan surrenders unconditionally. The emperor speaks for the first time to his people, announcing defeat in language so formal many cannot understand it. Hiroshi hears the news in San Pedro, standing in the fishery that has become more home than any place military service took him. He should feel devastated. Instead, he feels relief that the dying can finally stop. He learns through Red Cross channels that his sister survived, living in Hiroshima's outskirts, spared by mere kilometers from the weapons center. She sends a brief letter asking if he's alive, mentioning nothing about their mother. Some questions answer themselves through silence. The POW camp begins processing repatriation. Men who dreamed of return suddenly face the reality of returning to a shattered nation, cities destroyed, economy collapsed, future uncertain. Some embrace it as duty. Others hesitate, having glimpsed alternatives during captivity. Hiroshi applies for a different path, sponsored work immigration, facilitated by Anderson's meticulous documentation of his fishery management. The process takes months of paperwork, interviews, bureaucratic skepticism. "You want to stay in the country that bombed your city?" an immigration officer asks, incredulous. "I want to stay where people treated me with dignity," Hiroshi responds. Nations make war, people make life. December 1945. Manzanar closes. Executive Order. 9066 officially rescinded. The government releases internees with train tickets, $25 dues and no apologies. Families scatter across America, uncertain whether to return to homes that may no longer exist or start fresh in places where they weren't imprisoned. The Takahashi family chooses return. Hiroshi prepares the fishery for weeks, repairing every minor damage, polishing equipment, organizing records with obsessive precision. He doesn't know how they'll react to finding an enemy soldier preserved their life's work while they suffered. They arrive on a gray January morning, 1946. Mr. Takahashi looks a decade older than his photograph suggested. Mrs. Takahashi moves with exhaustion deeper than physical tiredness. The teenage children carry expressions of people who learned too early that citizenship promises nothing. Young Aiko, now 11, enters cautiously, eyes wide at seeing her home again. They stand in silence, the Takahashi family surveying their fishery, while Hiroshi waits for judgment he cannot predict. Mr. Takahashi walks through slowly, touching tables, checking equipment, examining records Hiroshi maintained meticulously. His hands shake slightly. Whether from emotion or 3 years of camp hardship, Hiroshi cannot tell. Finally, Mr. Takahashi speaks in careful English, then Japanese, ensuring Hiroshi understands both. "You kept our dream alive when our country abandoned it. You treated our work with honor when you had no obligation to care. You are not our enemy. You are not even friend yet. But you are someone who did right thing in wrong world. Mrs. Takahashi approaches, offering a small package wrapped in cloth salvaged from Manzanar. Inside, a wooden fish carved during internment, something created from boredom and hope that skills would matter again someday. "For you," she says simply. "For remembering us when forgetting would be easier." Aiko discovers her mother's apron still hanging where it was left 4 years ago. She presses her face against it, crying quietly for stolen time that cannot return. Hiroshi helps them settle back into their business over following weeks. His immigration status resolves through Anderson's advocacy and the Takahashi's sponsorship. He becomes employee, then partner, then family by choice rather than blood.